war, a declaration of a supply chain risk, and a pullback from elite institutions of higher ed. There's a lot going on. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the end of the week, a national security, international relations, news review, and commentary podcast. I am so happy to have you here. My name is Morgan Houston, aka Whiskey Mo, the internet's least famous academic. I am a scholar of irregular warfare, national security policy, information, and the list continues to grow. This week we've got a lot, so buckle up. This one may be a little bit longer, but before we get into it, if I could have a small request for you, if you would mind pressing all the buttons. Do all the things, especially on YouTube. I have been posting there a lot more frequently as we are trying to update the things on the current events, the current shooting war in Iran, which we will talk about later. But if you would like more of that, please go ahead and gently caress that like button, the thumbs up button. You can also subscribe to let YouTube and Spotify know that you find value in this podcast. And if you want to know exactly when this comes out or my other videos on YouTube, you can go ahead and hit the notification bell. I think that is probably going to be the best way. I'm trying very hard to keep up with things, but things are moving so fast, and I am more of a synthesizer here. I am never going to be a breaking news outlet here, but I know a lot of people have a hard time keeping up with things, and so every couple of days, if I can put something out for you, go ahead, go to YouTube. I will put a thing right here of what YouTube it is. So if you're seeing this on Spotify, feel free to catch up there. I will put that here. Thank you so much for sticking around. If you think someone will find interest in this, please share. But why don't we go ahead and let's roll right into it. Literally less than 12 hours after I had recorded last week's episode, the United States had begun a new shooting war with Iran. As the president declared, major combat operations began on February 28th, 2026. And now we are nearly a full week into I'm not sure what to call it. The U.S. Congress has not declared war on Iran. I don't know where the legal ramification or the legal justification for this war is coming from. I don't know if it's supposed to be like the 2001 AUMF, which is the authorized use of military force that was granted for Operation Enduring Freedom, which was then kind of expanded in unique ways. But as of this point, the United States and Israel have conducted thousands of strikes against Iran. The justification has been kind of all over the place. I go deep into that in a YouTube video. I will try and put a card here for the justification bit if you want to watch that video. Iran has so far not attacked the United States homeland directly, but it has targeted U.S. troops and installations throughout the region as well as Israel. And it is also beginning to just attack its regional neighbors in general. Attacks have been conducted on Oman, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Syria, Turkey, Cyprus, as well as Israel. Israel has expanded the scope of its conflict from just Iran to also re-engaging against Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Beirut has seen multiple attacks and multiple strikes against it. This is looking more and more likely to continue and to expand. Even Azerbaijan has recently been attacked and is calling out Iran. So far, Turkey and NATO has not declared an Article 5 situation yet where an attack on one is attack on all. But, I mean, Turkey, honestly, I believe would be fully within its rights. The Brits have sent warships into the Med to protect Cyprus. The French, Italians, and Spaniards are sending help, even though Spain has denied the Americans' use of any bases within Spain for strikes on Iran, which has caused the Trump administration to say that they are going to end all trade with Spain, which it may be difficult considering that they're part of the EU. There's a whole thing there. I'm not an economist, so I can't really go deep on that. Also, there are There's been some claims by the Washington Post that Russia has been assisting Iran in targeting American forces and giving the locations of warships and so forth. Also, early on in the campaign, there was an attack that damaged a school and killed approximately 160 plus people. There's a really good article from the New York Times, which I will link below, where my good internet friend, that's kind of a funny joke, but someone I know who I find really important, his name is Wes J. Bryant. He is a former Air Force Special Operations JTAC who led the targeting cell in Syria against ISIS, was the former Pentagon Civilian Harm Reduction director, where he describes what happened there, most likely where it's probably a targeting failure. And then they also talk still about some of the failings of the intelligence there. It's a really good article. I highly recommend it. I'll put a gift link down at the bottom. Yeah, so this is big. I mean, the United States has sunk a Iranian ship from a submarine, the first time that has happened since World War II. But there's a lot going on there, and we'll get deeper into it with commentary. But I think that this is probably a very tenuous situation, and it bears a lot of watching. I know this is what I've been paying attention to the most. I will, as always, I will continue to bring updates to my YouTube channel, which is Whiskey Mo. So you can search on YouTube for Whiskey Mo, all one word, and it'll pop up. So story number 2 is our tech story of the week, and the Department of Defense has now labeled Anthropic a supply chain risk, right? And this is in response to, as we talked about last week, the CEO of Anthropic saying that the DoD needed to continue to allow Anthropic to put guardrails on its Claude generative AI that they have been using, because they wanted to ensure that their AI systems were not being used for fully autonomous systems as well as mass surveillance on American citizens. And apparently that was too much for the Department of Defense. And so the government has now told any government agency that they can no longer use Claude, the Anthropic AI, and that they have now slapped the supply chain risk label onto Anthropic, which is, generally speaking, something that was used to it's used to demonstrate that this corporation is like a threat to American national security, and it's very unique. It's very interesting. I don't think it has been used in this way before. It's something that I think bears watching, especially considering that the DoD has also threatened to use the the Defense Production Act, which means that they can take control of the production of Claude for national security reasons. So it seems a little bit contradictory. We'll talk a little bit more about that in our commentary, but it's a continuation of what we've talked about last week. And AI is one of those really important things, and an AI kind of ties into our next story, which is Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has announced that the U.S. will no longer be connected to a list of schools, mostly the Ivy League, but it started with Harvard and now includes Princeton, MIT, and so there's a whole complicated thing. And there's another New York Times, it's an Inside Higher Ed article that I will post in the description as well, to give you a list of the schools, give you a list of all these things. But what it boils down to is the Secretary of Defense has claimed that these schools are anti-American, they're anti-military, and that they're delivering, quote, woke, end quote, education that is anti-American and makes the American warfighter weaker. MIT has come back with a response saying that they don't understand. They haven't really truly been informed. There's been no contact from the DoD, but they're confused as to the fact that some of the most advanced research on quantum computing, AI, and et cetera are being conducted at a place like the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So they're kind of confused as to why they wouldn't want to continue to have fellows at these schools. It's a unique and interesting conundrum, I think. The Secretary of Defense is a a graduate of both Princeton and Harvard, so it's kind of a interesting situation where things have happened. So that's one. It's been one that's happening for a while, but I think as we continue to get more information, and there's some discrepancies between the videos that are posted by Secretary Hegseth and some of the memos and the literature that is coming out, we're going to have some continued discrepancies. So that's our 3 stories for the week. All right, let's get into the commentary section of this week's episode, and let's start with the Iran war. Obviously, I have thoughts. This is something that is extremely interesting. I think one of the biggest problems right now is that we are finding that there isn't a lot of concrete descriptions of what our strategic outcomes are with this. Initially, there are some claims that this was needed to happen because Iran was rebuilding its nuclear program. But 8 months ago, we were told that the Iran nuclear program was completely obliterated. And if we were to even take that at face value, there's no way that the Iranians could have built up an entire nuclear weapons platform in that short of a time. And even if they hadn't been completely destroyed, some of the most recent intelligence estimates were that the actual threat of either a weapon system that could reach the U.S. or any of that was not even until 2030 at the earliest. And I think we're also seeing the ramifications of not having a stated strategic outcome here, in the fact that as Iran continues to retaliate, we are seeing an expansion of the targeting set that Iran is doing. What started as targeting American troops in neighboring countries and in Israel has just kind of expanded. Now there are large amounts of civilians in the UAE and in other places who have been killed. 6 American service members have been killed. As I mentioned earlier, an elementary school in Iran was attacked with 160 plus mostly children killed. And it just seems to be that everything is nebulous, and there doesn't seem to be an actual plan. And that's very problematic. Like, you have to have some sort of strategic outcome. At first, regime change wasn't a part of it, but now President Trump is saying that he needs to be involved in whoever is called to replace, because the Ayatollah Khamenei, who was the supreme leader, has been killed, and now he doesn't want his son to take place. And there is a disparate list of justifications for this war coming from within the administration. President Trump says one thing, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said a couple of others. Pete Hegseth has said a few too, and there's just no consistency across the board. And I'm very concerned about how this is going to continue to go forward, as the outlies of the potential risk to our servicemen and women, our allies and partners in the regions. Like, there's so much potential for this to steamroll into something that I've heard comparisons to the killing of the Archduke prior to World War I. And I don't know if that's actually the case, but I mean, sometimes it's these little things that cause these things to steamroll, and our international situation just eventually collapses into a state of world war. Now, it's been 80 years since the last time we've had a fully globalized war, and I really hope this doesn't turn into it, but we're already starting to see Russia is beginning to influence and support Iran in certain ways, because what is happening now, because a lot of supplies and material that were heading towards Ukraine are now being shifted to the Middle East to support anti-aircraft capabilities, anti-drone capabilities, just kind of to that protective veil that is happening, like Patriot missiles and those kinds of things. And so it's within Russia's interest to ensure that this continues, and that Iran is able to resist this kind of ad hoc coalition that is slowly being formed. As of right now, most of the European nations are kind of giving tacit approval to the U.S. and support, but I don't know if that's going to stay long term. A lot of these moves that are happening are coming without consultation with our closest allies and partners, and eventually I can get concerned that the Europeans and maybe just any of our allies and partners can see that it is not within their best interest anymore to continue to support America. And isolationism is not a good look for America. I think it's extremely dangerous. And as we continue to antagonize the world, being alone is not a good thing. So this isn't I mean, as we were speaking, things are happening. So I can't give you a full detail, but I hope this can eventually end with some sort of positive thing, because two things can be true, right? Like the people of Iran deserve, they deserve a better government. They deserve freedoms. While the Islamic Revolution was at times tied into what many at the time the Iranians felt was undue pressure. At the time the Savak, the Iranian secret police, was brutal. Like, there was some justification for that revolution, but it brought about an authoritarian regime that has been conducting massive amounts of human rights violations. I think the people of Iran should be free to elect their own government, but at the same time, I question the validity of this attack, especially in the guise of the legality of this. There was no declaration of war in Congress. I don't know what legal justification is. Like, what's happening now is testing the limits of some of the norms and standards that we have, even the constitutionality of the actions by the executive, and these things are starting to reshape the American political structure to begin with. And I feel like we're at a breaking point. So it's very interesting, and it's going to bear a lot of watching. I'm going to continue to try and update on just regular videos on my channel itself, not within the podcast. So if you're watching this or listening to this on Spotify, please go subscribe to my YouTube channel, where you will be able to have more access and keep updated as I can give to you as we are going on. As far as the Anthropic situation, I don't think the administration and the Department of Defense particularly understand what is happening here. Their messaging seems to fail, right? There's this constant discussion about protecting the rights of free speech, about protecting American citizens, but when guardrails are being placed on a system, and then they say that that's un-American, anti-American, and that it's a supply chain risk, yet at the same time they want to invoke the Defense Production Act to seize that production. It's so counterintuitive and everything, and it's so strange to me, because it's like they want to. It's the whole Marie Antoinette thing. They want their cake and eat it too, right? Like if you support the things that are in the Constitution, those kind of guardrails should be something that you are wanting to have. The fact that a contractor is willing to place that in and of themselves to protect the constitutional rights of Americans, like, we should be celebrating that, and we should be offering Anthropic all that they want, because too many times the tech sector has failed to do any kind of basic protections of their consumers and the American people, because they're so profit hungry that they're willing to sell data to almost anyone. And I think the fact that, as much as I am not necessarily a fan of the Anthropic CEO or Anthropic or generative AI in general, I think the fact that there was a company that was willing to protect the civil rights and the general constitutional rights of American citizens is something that we should be supporting and celebrating, and making sure that that's the kind of standard that we expect from our defense contractors, especially as we talk about wanting to grow the prime contractors. The number, it went from, at one point after World War II, that we had 56 prime contractors, the big contractors that supported the DoD, to now we have five, and they're all the big ones you think of: Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, things like that. But now, as we want to expand the defense industrial base to make a more competitive system, which I believe will be more innovative, stronger, more resilient, we should not be punishing those who seek to protect the rights of American citizens. Like, that should be, like, first and foremost. That's the whole point of the Department of Defense. That's why it's a defense department. It's to defend the homeland, defend the people, right? So that's extremely problematic that this is happening, and as much as I hate to agree with the CEO of a tech company, especially a generative AI one, I think Anthropic wins this one in the court of public opinion. Now, as it comes to the story of professional military education and the DoD withdrawing from its long-term partnerships and fellowship granting with places like Harvard, Princeton, and MIT, I think this is the most hypocritical thing that you could possibly do. Like, the reason that Pete Hegseth is where he is now is from graduating from some of these top tier institutions. And a lot of the people in government who are making these rules are sending their kids to these institutions because they know the quality of the education they're going to get. And it's just, it's a sad look of it turning to a culture war. And there's no harm in having a diversity of ideas, because that's what makes a military strong. Is the more that we can understand people, sometimes even empathize with them, the better we can operate as a military. Like, we need critical thinking. You don't want blind order followers. That's how you get war crimes, man. Like, we don't want that. Like, there's a reason we signed the Geneva Conventions in 49. There's a reason that we have rules of engagement and laws of armed conflict. And we don't just want blind and the thing is what makes this wild is that it's only 95 or 97 fellowships that are being terminated right now in the Ivy League. And they say these things, but then they are opening it up for more people. Like, the only one that kind of makes sense, the new places, is Liberty University, as that is a ultra conservative Christian nationalist institution, right? As far as I can tell, the education is very good. I have an acquaintance who got a PhD in history from Liberty. He's a fantastic historian. So, like, obviously the education is good, but like, there's some ideology there as well. But then you talk about a place like Michigan, the University of Michigan, or University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. These are no less quote unquote woke than Harvard and Princeton. The only thing that makes them different is that they're highly selective, and they're generally seen as bastions of elitism, which that's a conversation we can have. And I think it's really important for us to have those conversations. But I think that when you yourself, for the benefit of these educations from a place like Harvard's Kennedy School, one of the best schools of public policy on earth, and you're going to deny our military leaders a chance to learn from some of those great thinkers. The thing with education, and I think this is what gets me the most about this, is these claims of indoctrination. Let me tell you something. I can't get my students to follow basic citations, like how to cite things properly. Not even to cite, but to cite things properly and to follow simple instructions. How the hell am I going to indoctrinate students, right? And I think this is the thing, is that it's just it's a weak argument, but unfortunately, I think that at this point we've just kind of lost this reality that we're in. And like, the thing is, like, Princeton is a part of the empirical studies of war project with West Point, right? It's one of the best security studies schools in the world. Their security studies PhD is out of this world. They take so few students and they do so many great things, and so many of the best scholars are from there. Harvard, same thing. It's why it's a Kennedy School. Same thing with MIT, the MIT Security Studies, the MIT International Relations. Like, these are top-notch programs that produce some of the greatest thinkers on either side of the aisle. And the fact that we are not wanting to send our best and brightest to where the best and brightest are supposed to be, to me, is just counterproductive, and it harms national security. So there's the end of my rant a little bit on that one. I hope that you guys learned something from this, and I hope that, hey, if you have opinions on it, get down in the comments. Let me know. I'm here for this. Let's have a discussion. Tell me what you think. Be kind. Be professional. Let's not be jerks to each other. We can disagree amicably, unless you are racist or sexist or something like that, and I won't stand for that. But as always, if you guys found some value in this, please gently caress that like button. Subscribe. Please subscribe. It's funny how every time I get a new subscriber, my views pop up. Right. So I know that it has value. So if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It really does help me out. I believe this brings value, and I hope more people can see it. If you want to know when all my videos come out, you can go ahead and hit the notification bell, especially now as I'm trying to be more active in updating the situation with Iran. I do have to say to my brothers and sisters who were killed in this short war so far, till Valhalla, my friends, first drinks on me. Regardless of what you think of the politics, I believe that we can all agree that we can support the men and women who are fighting it, because they don't have a choice. As always, if you find value, please share this with someone else, and I hope to see you again at the end of the week.